Hello, guys. Welcome to the Tech Point Africa podcast. On today's episode, we'll be talking about some very interesting stories, right? The first is how Moniepoint is becoming one of the biggest, baddest fintechs in Nigeria. There's also a story about a special plan to fight POS fraud in Nigeria. And the last story we'll be talking about is Sony's idea or their investments or their plans to make Africans play more PlayStation. Joining us in the studio is Chingozrim. We already know Chingozrim, so no need for introductions. But Emmanuel Inyada is a new face in the studio today. He's joining us from Aspen and Sile. He's a managing counsel at Aspen and Sile. Hello, Emmanuel. How are you doing today?
Hello, how you doing?
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. All right, I'm sure you guys can notice that Nifemi is not the one doing the hosting today, and that's because I'm filling in for her. She's on a special assignment, right? Special mission.
Does that sound like special?
Right, and she will definitely be joining us next in the next episode, right? So let's start with Money Points. Yeah, Money Points, like I said, they're becoming one of the biggest fintechs, like slowly, not slowly, like quickly becoming one of the biggest fintechs in Nigeria today. And one of the reasons why I say that is because they've actually doubled their workforce, right? And it's interesting that they did that because this is coming at a time where we've seen a lot of layoffs. Companies are scaling down. Even some fintechs are now saying they're not even doing fintech again. They want to become edtech, right?
You want to name them?
All right. I'm sorry. I'm sure most people know who I'm talking about. All right. So I think so. If they're doing something like that, I think the one question that will be on most people's mind is, Chingosim, why exactly are they doubling workforce at a time where everyone is scaling down?
Okay, so first is that they have money to pay.
Nice.
So if you don't have money, you won't double your employee count. But the major reason is that they launched a lot of new products in 2023. So for example, we saw them launch a personal banking service, and it's kind of different from when you're just doing business banking. You could have maybe a handful of people who are working in support for business banking. But
True.
when we are talking personal banking, if I have a little problem, I want to get a response in less than 5 minutes.
True.
So you need a lot more people to do it, and that was one. According to them, one of the departments that had the most growth was customer support. So that was one. They also had serious growth in technology or engineering. That's kind of natural because you
Yeah.
sort of need to boost your systems and ensure that you have as few downtimes as possible. So yeah, that's what I say the major reason why they had to boost their employee count in such a short time.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Chingosim. So my next question now would be how they are growing so big so quickly. And Emmanuel, I'll direct that question at you, right? How are they doing it? Because I know they actually started by building out fintech or financial infrastructures before now moving into actually providing customers building technology that actually is directed directly at the customer. So how have they been able to like scale so fast?
Oh, but I will say first, we'll give kudos to the team at Moniepoint for what they're doing. Looking how they moved from B2B solutions to B2C, they were providing solutions for banks, and now they are targeting individual customers. So I don't think it should per se be a surprise to the team generally, but also looking at I think the events over the last couple of years, looking at COVID-19 that led to the adoption of technology and fintech payments. The banks were closed, so people had to find alternative measures. Then also looking at I think for last year, looking at the cash redesign policy of the CBN in 2022, I think that also influenced the adoption of their products by individual consumers in Nigeria. For 2022, they had about 100 million dollars, billion dollars in the transaction. It increased to 150 in 2023. So I think it is one, kudos to the team for their strategic approach to the market, because it's highly competitive. Then also looking at the policies of governments and the change in consumer attitude and behavior, and they're being positioned with a fantastic product to take advantage of that. So I don't think the growth is a surprise. Per se. And again, looking at their expansion also into new markets, looking at the acquisition in Kenya, I think Kopo in Kenya. So that basically shows that they can do more. And as Chimgozi earlier mentioned, with regards to them expanding their team, doubling the size of them, I think they will still even look at hiring more in the coming years. So it's that's a good one.
I mean, the future is looking really bright for Moniepoint. But now let's try and make some predictions, right? We've seen what they did in 2022. We have an idea of how well they did in 2023. So, Chimgozi, what do those things we've learned about them over the years, what can you inform in 2024?
Okay, so full disclaimer, I'm not saying what will happen, just saying what could happen.
What could happen?
If it doesn't happen, do not ask me what happened. So I'm not making predictions.
All right.
But one thing I can infer from some of their moves, especially with the hiring of an M&A, let's say someone to head the M&A division, would be maybe an international expansion. So like you mentioned, they've already started making moves in Kenya. We don't know if there would be a few more African countries over the next few years. But yeah, we can expect to see international expansion, and it's interesting that it's coming at this point. If you followed Moniepoint's story, they spent quite some time between 2020, 2021, and I think even in 2022 talking about international expansion. And one of my questions was always, when would this happen? So it looks like this is finally happening. Something else would be, and this is, I think they've gone around to almost all. They've gone to payments. They've gone into personal banking. They've done business banking. So I'm just wondering what's next. Are they going to get into insurance next? I don't know. Are they going to get into insurance? Because I mean, they have the base for it. So it may just be a service that they do alongside someone. So yeah, acquisition in Kenya is a banking, or it's kind of in the same line with what they've been doing. Could they decide to make an acquisition that's kind of different, leverage someone's experience, and then build new products? So I think it would be expansion and probably different products, different verticals, still under fintech or finance, depending on how you want. How you want to call it.
I mean the insurance side of things will be very interesting. I would like to see how they plan to do that.
I mean, yes, because I want to see them use the same playbook for expanding access to mobile money. To mobile money, but agency banking, using that same playbook. I just want to see how it will play out for the insurance space. So let's see if that ever happens.
Yeah, let's see. Time will tell. All right. But my final question about this whole Moniepoint growth and the moves they are making, being what can other fintechs learn? And this question is important because when I started, I said they are doing all this at a time when we're saying, okay, let's do small. let's scale back, right? So what can fintechs or even startups generally learn from what Moniepoint has been doing? Emmanuel?
Okay, I think primarily it's strategy and understanding your market. I think Moniepoint, they did their own work, so it means that they have a lot of domain knowledge on how Africans behave and how they use these products, and they've done so well so far. So one thing is understanding the market. Fintechs have to, before you go out there, it means you have to get experts, like Chimgozi mentioned. He said they got an expert to head their NME department. So why not get people who already have experience in the space to head certain teams? Try when you are looking at, let's say, sales or marketing, or other departments in the firm. So that's one thing other fintechs can learn, and also the courage, I think, to move, not slowing down, executing as fast as it's coming. Because I'm sure if you look in-house at Moniepoint, they do a lot of trial and error. They would have launched something, and if it doesn't do what, they would have scaled back. So that's what we have with teams like that. So I think that's another thing they can look out of, and also relationship with regulators. Also, especially when you are playing in a regulated space.
Yes.
Good thing is that Moniepoint, they have all their licenses in Nigeria, and if you also look at the acquisition in Kenya, Moniepoint didn't even announce themselves. Myself and Chinwoji were discussing that it was the regulator in Kenya that did the announcement. So it means that they have a fantastic relationship with the regulator. So yeah, so I think those are some of the things they can get from their playbook.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, wishing Moniepoint all the best. Let's now go to something a bit related, right? We've spoken a lot about agency banking. Has been able to, make moves in that regard. And one thing that is synonymous to agency banking is POS terminals, right? And a couple of bodies are working together to create a feature that prevents fraud on POS terminal. These bodies are the Nigerian Electronic Fraud Forum and the Association of Mobile Money and Banking Agents in Nigeria, right? They are creating a feature, and what this feature is actually supposed to do is to flag fraudulent transactions on POS terminals, right? And not just flag those transactions, it now gives authorities the location of where those transactions happen. It sounds great, right? It sounds like fraud, as we know, right, over the years has been a big issue in Nigeria. But there are really important questions that need to be asked, and I think let's start with how big, right, is the POS fraud problem in Nigeria, Chingwebe?
Okay, so first, just occurred to me now that one of the agencies that they are using or that they are working with for this is also it kind of contribute to POS fraud.
Interesting.
Yes, the police contributes to POS fraud.
Interesting.
It's not something that nobody knows. So I'll start with explaining how POS fraud works, then go into how big it is or can be. So it's, looking from the outside, it can be interesting, or you can be puzzling. How does this happen, right? But one way is the classic way that banks, financial institutions have been shouting about for several years. So I give you my ATM, and I give you my ATM and my PIN, and maybe a few weeks down the line, use the details I gave you to make a withdrawal from my account. It's unauthorized, but because or because you have the ATM, nobody can really stop you or do anything about that. The other is when these withdrawals are done under duress. Like I mentioned, we've seen numerous cases across the country where SARS makes individuals go withdraw money from either ATM or POS terminals. The other would also be kidnappers, armed robbers. That's like a common MO. And the third, and probably the one that should have most people worried or everyone worried, is some POS terminals can clone your details. And when that happens,
that's scary.
Very scary, because whenever I think about it, I'm like, whose POS terminal should I use? Yeah, exactly. And maybe, I don't know, that's a different discussion, but yeah, it's scary. Your details can be cloned, and those details can now be used when you are not around to carry out transactions. And as you can see, I've only mentioned one technology solution. Every other solution here there's a huge human element. But as to how big fraud can get, between Q2 2022 and Q2 2023, there were at least there was fraud cases or POS fraud cases that amounted to about 1.95 billion naira, which is a lot of money. And that's just in in that period. We don't yet have the details for the entire year in the entire 2023. So that's how big it could get. So yes,
big.
the desire or the move to fight POS fraud is legit, but there are still a lot of questions to be asked.
Yeah. And one of those questions is what I'll be asking him. So what are those barriers to, like, Jimmy Ozuri has told us the way some of these fraud cases happen, right? So what are those barriers to them saying, oh, we want to create a feature that will...
Well, like you mentioned, it's a human problem generally. So it means that even the people perpetrating this crime or this act, even with new technologies, they are definitely going to find a way to evolve and take advantage of the system. But the good thing about this is that it's not just a particular agency that is on it. We have agencies of government working with private players.
Okay.
So we have, like you mentioned, the Nigerian Electronic Fraud Forum, which is an arm of the CBN, together with the Nigerian Interbank Settlement Systems, that's NIPS, and working together with the police, the DSS, and of course, we have AMBAN, which is the Association of Mobile Money Agents and Banking Agents of Nigeria. So we have players in the ecosystem working together, trying to find a solution. Well, one of the barriers I see, basically, because looking at the system, what they are trying to do is, one, create an additional KYC layer on how to get this thing done.
Yeah.
But then, wouldn't they start providing wouldn't the people basically at the fraudsters now start getting information from the users now? They are additional information. That in itself is a risk they are looking at. But another thing also that I realized that they're trying to also implement is with regards to providing common identifiers for banking agents, that is POS agents and all, to terminal. So aside from the KYC feature that they're introducing to combat fraudulent transactions, they're also providing identifiers. Maybe, I don't know how that's going to be, but it could be a number to identify every agent. So Amban said they have about 1.7 million agents on their platform. I'm sure it should be more than that. So I think that is another angle we can look at, that, okay, if there was a fraudulent transaction, if there was a report, they can easily trace back to the particular agents where that fraud occurred from. So generally, it's a good one. But then there's still the fear, like you mentioned, the human elements. They'll find a way to take advantage of it. So
yeah. So just to add to that, one is will I say agent education? I don't know if you remember, but last year we talked about it. They wanted to start like online courses basically for agents. I don't know how that has gone, how much progress they've made on that front, but that's going to be a lot of work, educating 1.8 million people to prevent this. But the second one would be that the major stakeholders in this do not seem to know that this is happening.
Yeah.
So major stakeholders as like the POS let's say operators now, those who provide, the companies that provide these POS machines. A lot of them say they do not know that such a thing is happening.
Yeah.
But the problem now becomes, how do you want to implement it? Okay, yes, you could. On one hand, if you train the agents to identify it, which I think will not solve the problem anyway. But if you train agents to identify maybe markers of crime, that could be one way. But if you want to use a KYC feature, then you need my system to sort of implement that KYC feature. And if I do not know about it, I don't know how you want to do it. And yeah, that alone would say a huge question mark. We've had this problem where they are not always very clear. Government agencies step in, but they're not clear on strategy.
So
and it's okay. Go on.
I also, like you mentioned, I also feel that's where ecosystem players comes in. Like for instance, AMBAN, when members of AMBAN are mobile money agents, mobile money operators, and super agents and all. So if we can get these fintechs to begin to educate those on their platforms, I think it makes it easier for the agents to.
Yeah, but so that point you brought up actually ties a bit to my next question, which is, does it make sense for government authorities, right, or bodies like this, to create a feature, to create a solution, for where the how should I put it now? the ecosystem players are not exactly involved, right? Because if you look at a lot of systems or a lot of things that have been created, NIBS, for example, was as a result of banks, right, coming together and say, okay, we need these things, let's create. But in cases where you now have CBN and Co now coming together to create something for them, right? Is that the best approach? Because I think they should have been involved from the beginning. What do you think?
So, first, you cannot have a crucial element in a problem missing when you're thinking about a solution. If you're not, you want to build a house and you want to build it on the air, you're wasting your time. That's never going to happen. And in this case, you can't have a fraud feature implemented without having POS providers. It's impossible.
Yeah.
Because you need access to their system. So that's the first thing I would say about that. One of the biggest problems we've seen around building like coalitions to fight fraud is everybody says we need to do this, but nobody wants to put themselves forward to do it. And there are a lot of reasons. I was speaking to someone last week and she mentioned that one of the major reasons why this doesn't happen is trust. If fintech doesn't want a competitor to get access to some of their data or some information about them that could be used in business strategy.
True.
And that element of trust, I think that if the CBN is involved or NIBS or AMBAN is involved, it sort of helps with that element of trust. Would it eliminate it completely? No. But at least you know that, I mean, you're not even guaranteed because CBN may decide to go and do their own business, but to a very large extent, you know that CBN is not going to use your data to start a new business, right? So that helps to reach trust. I think a mix of industry-led and agency-led approach to fighting fraud might be the best solution as opposed to, okay, let's leave the agency to figure it out, because if the agency goes ahead, they may miss out on some things. If we leave the industry, the problem of trust may never be fixed, and we may never solve the problem of fraud.
True. All right, thank you very much, Ngozi. I think that makes so much sense, right? So you wanted to add something, Emmanuel?
Yeah. So with regards to the approach, it's actually quite commendable that we have agencies of government coming in to solve the problem together with the ecosystem players, because in most climes they just put the regulation out there and watch you flout it so that you'll be penalized. But since it's already a national problem, people are losing a lot of money, so it's quite commendable.
Makes sense. Thank you. All right, so let's now go from fraud to something less serious, it's still serious, right? But more interesting, right? And that's gaming. Something I like to do myself, even though I'm not very good at it. But yes, Sony, right? I'm sure you all know Sony. Sony, the makers of the PlayStation and many other devices. So last year they launched a $10 million fund. It's called the Sony Innovation Fund, and they launched one for Africa, which was $10 million, right? And the plan for that fund was to invest in entertainment, early stage entertainment startups. So that's gaming, music, content distribution. And this year they just made their first investment, and that investment was in a gaming company in South Africa called Carry First, right? So we'll be looking into everything surrounding the investment, what it means, and how it will work. And my first question about that would be, they're investing in gaming, right? How big is gaming in Africa, Manu?
Okay, in Africa.
Yeah.
Well, it's quite a huge market, surprisingly.
Okay.
Quite a huge market. The adoption, the use of mobile phones, and has contributed to that growth. There's projection that the market in itself, looking at revenue by 2024, we grew to about 4.2 billion, I think.
Wow.
And by 2027, it should have risen to about 5 billion, basically. So it's quite interesting, the investment coming from Sony. It's also strategic because they are also looking at investing in the future. So if you look at their investment in the startup, it is because it's a software, it's a gaming development company.
Yeah.
And one of their active clients is Activision.
Oh, nice.
basically. So they are not just looking at startups that provide games, but startups will be able to also provide value to them with regards to creating games for them. So it's a good investment.
Makes sense.
It's a strategic one also from them. So yeah.
I mean, judging by those projections, they might want some slice of the cake, and that makes sense. But what exactly is that investment going to do for Carry First Team Gazim?
Okay. So I mean, first, having Sony back you is huge. That's a huge validation of what you're building. They are not here to play around. Mentioned last year when they launched the fund that gaming market in Nigeria or entertainment market in Nigeria generally is growing, and they want to be a part of it. We've seen Sony's involvement in music. We've seen them in other entertainment businesses, but this is probably the first serious gaming investment that we are aware of that they're making. So for one, it validates what Carifest has been doing. Carifest I think it's one of the oldest. They were formed in 2018.
Yeah,
they're one of the oldest gaming companies or gaming startups on the continent, and they've had like strong, consistent growth since they were founded. So validation of what they are doing. Secondly, could be giving them a bigger platform to play. I'm not aware that they had partnerships with Sony or PlayStation previously, which is one of the things that so we don't have details of the arrangement, how it will play out yet.
Okay.
But one of the details is, or one thing that was suggested is, this could be a move to like making PlayStation's, let's say, footprint in Africa. I have a few reservations.
With that, right?
But that is what they say. And why do I have reservations? Gaming in Nigeria or in Africa is generally mobile driven. Since last year, we've been talking about getting PS5. We've still not gotten it.
Good hell and dirty laundry outside.
Right? But I mean, see, all of us in this country they are all posters. That's not it. We've been talking about getting PS5 since last year. I think since 2022, actually. So 2 years now, and we haven't gotten PS. By the way, this is an appeal. You can send us PS5 if you like us that much. Sony can actually send us one if you do. We'll tell you thank you. But
yes, I like that.
We've been talking about this for 2 years. We've not gotten it. And the reason is because putting 500k down, or I don't know what it is now, probably 600, 700k.
Right now is over 600.
It's a lot of money. And beyond that, we have to get consoles.
We have to get
pad. The pad alone is like, I think if you want
70k.
Good pad, you need like 70 plus k. If you want to get one good game, if you want to buy FIFA, because you need that. Exactly. So the cost is already accumulating.
Yeah.
Because even include that if I want to play if I want certain features, I also need an internet connection.
Yeah.
And this is not me browsing TikTok. Games they consume data like they consume data like mad.
A lot.
So that's a lot of investment. But I have a phone that maybe I got for 150,000 naira, and my regular data can run most games on it. So what would I rather do? I'm not going to spend all that money on. And this is a phone that I'll use for every other thing, or so many other things.
True.
But a PS5
can only do that one thing.
Of course, it has a few other features.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be logging a PS5 around when I'm going to meet a friend. Right. So that barrier alone is a big problem. And mobile gaming market, that's one of the reasons why we've seen mobile gaming in Africa.
Yeah.
So except there's a plan, and this is an educated guess, or hopefully an educated guess, but except there's a plan to maybe bring PlayStation to mobile phone.
PlayStation games to mobile phone.
Yeah, PlayStation games to mobile phones. That could be something that maybe opens up
a
huge market. Yeah, because we also have Southeast Asian countries, right, where mobile gaming is huge.
Yeah.
So Southeast Asia, Africa, if you merge us together, and hopefully some of our guys in Latin America, all of us are all emerging or submerging economies. So all of us, if we band together, we might make a case for mobile PlayStation games. So
yeah, it's very interesting. And we might actually see what you said about bringing PlayStation games to mobile phones. Like I remember that when the iPhone 15 launched, it launched with one game, right? And the game was like a console game that they created for the iPhone. I think It was a game by Ubisoft or something. Those guys that created Assassin's Creed, and it was like just as good as, because it was kind of a way to like prove how powerful the new chip in the iPhone was. So maybe that is something that might happen very soon. And if you're wondering how big mobile gaming is in Africa, so I mean, if you just compare, right? According to there's this report by Newzoo Global Games, right? And in Africa, in sub-Saharan Africa, we have like 9 million console gamers. But mobile gamers, we have like 207 million.
Yeah, so that
In 2023.
that's way more than.
Yes,
Who
that
do you want to bet? So who do you want to bet on?
yeah, and like Tim was saying, it's because most of us don't have money. PC gamers are more, but then you can understand that people have laptops to work with, and they can also get games on it.
But then, with regards to making money, because there is the commercial angle in Nigeria, I saw that the stat is that grew to about over 70 million people by 2027.
Okay.
So it also means that if you look at the average revenue per user, which is about $28, they're also looking at it from getting into the market, first mover advantage, basically take advantage of the growing number of gamers in Nigeria or in Africa generally, and to think that this investment is their first investment through the
through that fund.
Sony Innovation Fund. It means that in the coming weeks and months we should be
Seeing
getting
some
more announcements with regards to their investments
in Africa.
in African gaming companies.
Okay.
Hopefully they'll come to Nigeria, but yeah. So
Hopefully.
alright.
Yeah. Just so before we round off, just to also talk about Carry Fest's their model, right? I know they're a gaming company, but recently I've been seeing that a lot of the things they put forward is a platform to help you buy
Points,
COD points, for
yeah,
example,
stuff, yeah.
pay for gaming stuff. So
They also sell airtime.
so
Yes.
payments, gaming,
Airtime.
interesting.
I mean, so you know how difficult it was for a lot of people to pay for stuff before. So that is like a very, very niche market that most people may not consider. So it just makes sense for them to play in that. It's a niche space, but like I said, they're also selling airtime. But it's a niche space that probably holds. We don't know exactly how much they are processing, but there are a lot of other people. I can't remember the exact figures, but Nigerians spend a ridiculous amount of money on games every month. So that's a huge market. You process those payments for them, and you're getting a cut. You could build a solid business of that. So yeah,
Makes sense. All right. I'm sure you've enjoyed everything with all the stories we talked about today. If you did, or maybe you have more to add, you can add that in the comment section. Let us know about what you feel about the stories. Did we miss anything? Was there anything that was inaccurate? Was there anything that was not clear? All right. Let us know. Make sure you like, share with people, your friends, enemies, everybody. And on this note, I'll also be adding some other goodies that we offer, and those are our newsletters, right? I'm sure everybody wants to stay up to date with the latest tech trends, who is buying who is investing in who. So for that, you want to subscribe to our flagship newsletter. It's called the Tech Point Digest. It gives you basically a roundup of everything that happened in the Africa tech ecosystem the day before, right? In 5 minutes you already know everything. And then we have more that is more focused on, say you're a founder and you are not sure how to run your business, or you are not sure, where do I even get funding from? I keep seeing this one raise 1 million, this one raise 1. Where does it all come from? Well, you have to follow Chimgozirim's newsletter, where we'll be teaching you a lot about that. It's called Equity Merchants, right? And then if you are an organization and you want to build a better work culture, you want to attract more really good talents, right? And then you should pitch a tent with Nifemi, right? She has this newsletter called that used to be called the Workaholic, which I liked, but then she has changed it to the Modern Workplace Africa newsletter. I hope that's correct, right? And then we have another finance newsletter, and then we also have one about blockchain coming up very soon. So that's all. And we also have a lot of stories on TechPoint Africa website that you can also catch up with. We just, for the sake of time and, we decided to just
Did you put Ogheneruemu in the podcast?
Yes. Besides, just talk about a few of them today. So thank you very much for joining us today. And if you want to listen to the full podcast episode, you can only get that on audio, right? And just go to any place you get your podcast from. So that's Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Heart Radio, or anywhere else you get your podcast. Thank you very much for joining us. We are signing off. Okay, I am signing off. They are still here. All right. Bye bye.
Bye.